As we get into this word this morning, I was really praying about what I wanted to share with you guys. I was really praying about what I wanted to tell our whole church, and I was kind of just praying over and over again, and God kept telling me and leading me back to like what we've been learning in the outlet. And we've been having some awesome times in youth group, and God's really been speaking to us, and it's been really good. And as I was coming, kind of like going in circles as I was planning, because I've actually had this date probably for 6 months. So I knew for a while that I was going to get to share in here, and I was so excited. I always feel very blessed to be able to bring the word in the main sanctuary here, and it's such an honor and a blessing to be able to share the word of God with you people. It's so amazing, and I get so blessed by it. And I was just really trying to make sure I was bringing the right word. I wasn't sure if I was going to follow along with the series, the Fight Club series, and finish that and do another part of that, or if I was just going to teach something else. But today, as I was praying, today we're actually going to learn something that we learned at youth camp. When we were at youth camp, and if you guys have any young people that you know or in your households that went to youth camp, this is kind of what they heard on the first night of youth camp. And I think it was pretty powerful. I think we had an awesome time with it. And I think God was really speaking to us. And I think the message is appropriate for our whole church. Now, at youth camp, our main theme was, what was the main theme? Linked. We were learning about being linked to God and being linked to each other. So it was about living together. So if you see on the tops of your pages, it says live together. That's what we're going to learn about this morning. At summer camp, we learned about being linked to each other and being linked to God. Those were the two main points. The two main sessions came out of those two ideas and the two thoughts. What we're going to learn today is what I taught them on the first night of camp, being linked to each other. So as we learn about living together and living lives in unity and living in fellowship with one another and having koinonia and all of those biblical terms, I'm hopefully going to be able to break it down a little bit to you guys on what we learned in a youth group on how to live in community, how to encourage each other, how to love one another, and also how to reach out and invite each other and invite other people into that same community and be able to grow and do what God has called us to do, to then make disciples and grow His kingdom, right? So if you were at youth camp, young people, you might already know the points. You weren't at camp. You might already know the points that I'm going to share with you this morning. So if you look up to the screen, that's actually the youth room right now. It's not a live stream, but you could go in there and see that exact thing. The stage, you can hardly see it, the lights that we kind of try to fade it out with some words on top. But we are having an awesome time in the youth group, and I just want to share with you guys, what God is doing. And really, I felt God saying to share this word with you guys. So, you know what? I'm going more youth with it. Michaela, you said it was linked, right? Our main passage, it's on the page, so I'm not going to ask that. Here's a question for anyone in the room. Who in here knows who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes? Even though you whispered it. Solomon. There you go, Michael. Get some candies for yourself. I give out candies in youth group, so I brought them back. I can distract you. It's fine. Eat your candies. It'll be good. Just don't leave your wrappers on the floor. This morning we're going to talk from the book of Ecclesiastes, and I'm going to read that passage on the top of your page. And a lot of times, if you hopefully with your pens and stuff, I'll tell the kids to underline and circle certain parts. So this was the main passage, and then we're going to read a couple other things. So Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 through 12. It says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying close to one another can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So, if you guys are looking on your page, young people, you see in verse 12 right there, it says back to back. Will you circle that? It says back to back. And then the very end of verse 12, it says, not easily broken. We underline that. Not easily broken. Those are some key phrases that we're going to be talking about in just a little bit. So as I just asked, who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes? It was Solomon, King Solomon. And I'm not sure how many of you guys know a little bit of his story, but we're going to read into that a little bit right now. So Solomon is the son of David, and he followed the throne after David. We're going to go to 1 Chronicles 22, verses 7 through 10 right now. So if you have your Bibles, turn to that page. It's not on your little paper there, but we will be showing it up on the screen. So 1 Chronicles chapter 22, verse 7 says, "My son," and this is a dialogue between David and his son Solomon. "My son, I wanted to build a temple to honor the name of the Lord, my God," David told him. "But the Lord said to me, you have killed many men in the battles you have fought. And since you have shed so much blood in my sight, you will not be the one to build a temple to honor my name. But you will have a son who will be a man of peace. I will give him peace with his enemies in all the surrounding lands. His name will be Solomon, and I will give peace, and I will give peace and quiet to Israel during his reign. He is the one who will build a temple to honor my name. He will be my son, and I will be his father. And I will secure the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever." I love this passage. And as I got to share to the young people, I love this passage so much because as we read into it, we see that God has a specific plan for each and every person. So if you're in this room right now, God has a plan for you that is unique for you. And he has a great plan, and he wants you to do great things. But what your plan is not exactly what the person next to you is. If that makes sense. So the person next to you's, your plan is not the same as their plan. I love this because you think about David. You think about where we first see him, right? And we see him when he was about 11 or 12 years old, like some of the youngest ones in youth group, right over here. He was 11 or 12 years old, and you remember what he did at a young age? Oh yeah, chocolate. There, he killed a giant. He destroyed the giant. But at a young age, David followed God's plan for him. And even at a young age, 11 or 12, God's plan for him, because David lived during a time of war, God's plan for him was actually to kill people. This is the very first person he killed. And I mean, it's crazy to think about in the world we live in today. Now, let me tell you, God's plan for all of you guys now in the New Testament is not to kill anyone. Okay? Let's get that out there. None of your guys' plan is to kill anyone. But for David, because he lived during a time of war, God's plan for him started at a young age. He knew exactly what needed to be done because he was used to fighting off lions and bears, all of these things from the sheep that he tended, right? So he knew how to use his slingshot. And he took what he knew, he took what God had used him for in a practical sense. His practical job was taking care of sheep, right? So I know a lot of us think that the jobs that we have are just something that we do to make money, to provide for our families. But let me tell you, the jobs that you do, as you are going to work every day, God will give you opportunities to shine his light and to share his love. And he wants to use whatever skills that you have in your job so that you can then give glory back to God and you can follow after his plan and do what he has for you. So David, at a young age, he learned these skills in his job of using a slingshot, and he learned that he needed to use this slingshot to defeat a giant. He put it straight in his forehead, took the own giant's sword and cut off his head, and he brought a great victory to the people of God, right? And he grew up, and there's a lot of crazy stories when you learn about David's life. There's a lot of ins and outs, a lot of stuff going on. But David was a king during a time of war, king over God's people. And during that time, he had called God's people to expand their territory. And the way that in those times he would expand territory was they had to take over cities, they had to kill people, they had to do all this stuff. And that was during those times the cultural thing that God had him to do. He had him to lead those people and do those things. And David did it, and that was part of God's plan for him, right? That was part of God's plan for him to kill Goliath and to lead armies and to fight battles and to shed blood. But when it came time for the people of God to actually settle down to a time of peace and build a stationary temple rather than a mobile tabernacle, when it came time for this, David knew that a temple needed to be built that would be stationary, that would be a place where people could gather, a place where people could come together and celebrate all of God's goodness and what he had done for them. And during this time, God, in this passage, tells David, you won't be able to build this temple. Because although you have done what I've called you to do, you have shed too much blood to build a temple which stands for peace. So, your son Solomon, whose name does mean peace, is going to be the one to build the temple. And this is something that I've wrestled with in my life before. How many of you guys, you want to be able to do everything? You want to help everyone, you want to get everything right, you want to be the best at everything that you see, and you just want to be able to help every person around you, and if you see someone hurting, you want to help them. If you see someone that needs something, you want to help them, and you just want to be there and be able to do everything. I think that's something that a lot of us feel like. I think that's something that a lot of us really want to do. I want to be able to help everyone, and I want to be able to do everything, and I want to do everything great and be the best at everything. First of all, that's impossible. But more importantly, that's not God's plan for you. God's plan for you is in sometimes, and in some ways, very detailed and very specific. So what David's plan was for him to expand the kingdom, for him to lead people, for him to lead battles and armies, and to do that kind of stuff. But because that was God's plan for him, it actually meant that disqualified him from doing something else. Now, that's something that I had to really learn a while back. That God has something for me to do, and because I'm doing that, I might not be able to do something else that I would have wanted to do. Something else that could be great, something else that could be wonderful. But that's not for me to do. And the same goes for all of you guys. God has a plan for you, and he wants you to do it, and he wants you to be blessed, and he wants it to be great. But because you do that thing, it might actually disqualify you from doing something else that could be awesome also. But you have to be able to know that you're doing what God's called you to do, and it's okay that you can't do that other thing. And it's okay that you can't do that other thing. So for David, the other thing was building this great and awesome temple. The temple that stood for peace. The temple that stood for bringing people together. The table that stood for unity and peace rather than a time of war and separation. So Solomon, his son, is learning this from his dad. Solomon, who has not had all of this bloodshed, Solomon, who has not done all of these crazy things, but Solomon, who is able to come up fresh, green, new, he's able to step into a role and bring peace and prosperity. And the people of God during his reign were known as being peaceful and prosperous. They're probably the richest they ever were during this time as they were building this temple. And it was also, and it's not to say David didn't have a part in it, because David's time as he was going out, he was fighting battles and he was expanding the territories, he was plundering cities, he was gathering a lot of materials, he was gathering a lot of laborers, he was gathering a lot of stuff so that they could build the temple. He just couldn't do it himself. So he set Solomon up to do what he needed to do through following his plan. You guys following so far? So this sets us up for Solomon to be able to be set up to do something great and something mighty, but something that was completely different from what his dad did. So his dad was a king during a time of war, and he was supposed to reign during a time of peace. And that brings us to our next story. We're going to go to the next chapter. We're going to go to 2 Chronicles and the beginning of that. Just a couple pages over. Give you guys a second if you have your paper Bibles, because I know you guys are, based on our game, pretty slow at finding it. You guys need to practice a little bit. You've got too used to your electronic devices. I saw Kyle over there wishing he had a paper Bible, but he only had electronic devices. All right, 2 Chronicles, chapter 1, verse 1. Solomon, son of David, took firm control of his kingdom. For the Lord his God was with him and made him very powerful. Solomon called together all the leaders of Israel, the generals, the captains of the army, the judges, the political and the clan leaders, and he led the entire assembly to the place of worship in Gibeon. For God's tabernacle was located there. This was the tabernacle that Moses, the Lord's servant, had made in the wilderness. Now David had already moved the ark from Kiriath-Jearim to the tent he had prepared for it in Jerusalem. But the bronze altar made by Bezalel, son of Uri, and grandson of Hur, was there at Gibeon in front of the tabernacle of the Lord. So Solomon and the people gathered in front of it to consult the Lord. There in front of the tabernacle, Solomon went up to the bronze altar in the Lord's presence and sacrificed 1,000 burnt offerings on it. That night, God appeared to Solomon and said, "What do you want? Ask, and I will give it to you." Solomon replied to God, "You showed great and faithful love to David, my father. And now you have made me king in his place. O Lord God, please continue to keep your promise to David, my father. For you have made me king over a people as numerous as the dust of the earth. Give me the wisdom and knowledge to lead them properly. For who could possibly govern this great people of yours?" God said to Solomon, because your greatest desire is to help your people, and you did not ask for wealth, riches, fame, or even the death of your enemies, or a long life, but you rather asked for wisdom and knowledge to properly govern my people. I will certainly give you the wisdom and knowledge you requested, but I will also give you wealth, riches, and fame, such as no other king before you or ever will have in the future. This is a pretty cool story. So we see in the previous story that David did awesome things as he was king. He was a king during a time of war. He couldn't build the temple. And now Solomon, as he's taking over, and he knows he's going to lead a people during a great time, a time of peace, and he's going to be able to build this temple, which is going to be a great monument for people to come all around that would unify so many people. But he's a little worried at first here. And it might not seem like it, but he feels the weight and the responsibility of leading people falling onto his shoulders. Now, all of you guys are not kings and queens, unless there's some hidden king or queen out there that I don't know of. And you might not have the weight and the responsibility of leading thousands and thousands of people. But each and every one of you does have people in your life that depend on you, that need you, that look up to you. And I think it's important that we would take a posture just like Solomon and tell God, you know what, I need help. I can't do this on my own. I need wisdom. I need knowledge to make this happen because I feel the responsibility that is before me. So all of you parents out there, and not just parents, everyone in the room, you guys have people that need you. You have people that look up to you. You have people that follow after you. My hope is that you would feel the responsibility, but you wouldn't shy away. That you would take it as God's calling and God's plan, and that you would ask God for wisdom and knowledge. So if you go to the beginning of this story, you see Solomon's actually just taking over as king. This is the moment that all right, you're in charge, buddy. And I like what Solomon does here. It says he gathers everyone. He gathers the judges, the generals of the army, all the political leaders, all the family leaders. He gathers everyone that has any bit of influence, and he takes them straight to the altar. I think that's important. I think that's important for all of us to realize that his first thing as king, he didn't say, okay, all of you guys bow down before me. All of you guys, all hail King Solomon. Look at me. I'm the next biggest thing. He took all of them together and he brought them all before God. And he said, we need to do this together. And as he later asked for wisdom and knowledge, it's not just him. He's brought all of his influential people, all of his leaders. And they come before God. And they begin to worship God. And they begin to give God sacrifices. Now, in their times, their sacrifices looked different than our sacrifices. But in our culture, in our day, we still have to make sacrifices for God. We still have to sacrifice some of our time. We have to sacrifice some time with other people. We have to sacrifice Sunday mornings. We have to give up stuff that other people go crazy about. But I think that those sacrifices are diminished because the great reward in spending a relationship with God is, right? So it shouldn't be sad. Oh, I'm so sad I can't spend however many time on a Sunday morning watching football, or it's not football season, baseball, or whatever. It shouldn't be, oh, I have to go to church, but I want to. I get to. I love to. I enjoy it. Not only do I get to explore and learn more about my relationship with God, but I get to hang out with my friends. I get to have a community of people who are also with me, who are in there with me doing the same thing. It shouldn't be a sacrifice, but it should be something that draws you closer to God and pumps you up, gets you excited. But that also doesn't mean it's not a sacrifice. The things that we do for God do take us putting effort into it, do take us taking the steps, do take us putting in the work. So as King Solomon is leading all his people together, And he says, the first thing that I'm going to do as king is lead you into the presence of God, and we're going to worship God, and we're going to make sacrifices to God, and we're going to fall on our knees before him and say, God, we can't do this alone. And God realizes that he's doing something special here. He could have just started doing whatever he wanted to do. He's the king. And God realizes he's doing something special here, and he says, you know what, Solomon? Ask for anything, and I'll give it to you. Because you started off as king so well. And Solomon, not for a second does he think about, oh, I just want riches. He's not selfish. He doesn't say, I want whatever, the newest, coolest thing. He doesn't say, I want fame, I want popularity. I want 1 million Instagram likes. I want all of my enemies dead. I want to live everlasting life because I just want to live forever and ever. He doesn't ask for anything selfish. It says he could have asked for the death of his enemies. He could have asked for long life. He could have asked for fame and riches. But we know that he didn't even think about that for a second. He knew that in this moment he was becoming king. And he felt the responsibility. And he says, God, give me the wisdom and the knowledge to lead your people. And that's so powerful. And God responds, he says, because you weren't selfish, because you asked for wisdom and knowledge, I'm going to give you the wisdom and knowledge, like I said I would give you. But I'm also going to give you the fame and the riches. He didn't need that. I'm sure he would have been completely fine just leading people. But God says, I'm going to bless you above and beyond. So in your lives, God looks to your heart. He looks to your heart, and when he says, I'm here for you, what do you need? We need to come to him with the true needs. And say, God, this is what I'm going through. And as long as we come to God with a pure heart, he wants to fill those needs. But he wants to bless us above and beyond. He wants to do that for us, just like he did for King Solomon here. So as King Solomon is asking for wisdom and knowledge and how to lead his people, God makes him the most wise man around. People would always come and ask him for advice. During this time, the nation of Israel prospered. And it wasn't just because David had given, had gotten and stored up all the materials and all the riches and stuff. But with his wisdom, Solomon was able to expand the amount of resources that they had. It's during Solomon's reign that they actually set up a bunch of trade outposts, and he was able to make more to make more money because they were able to set up trades, and they did a lot more things with Solomon's wisdom that were able to make the people prosper during that time. So they built the temple, they prospered, people all came from all around. But through Solomon's wisdom, God's people were able to benefit and become more prosperous during this time, and it was really amazing. And through that wisdom, Solomon then shared a great story that we just read earlier, about living together, about helping each other out. Through that wisdom, Solomon was able to write a couple books of the Bible that really changed the way that we live. And if we would take some of his wisdom and apply it to our lives, we would have more of what God wants for us. So as we come, I'm going to give you 4 points this morning that we're going to pull out of this Ecclesiastes chapter, our main chapter. And as God has told us that we need to live life together, we need to watch each other's back. We need to be there for each other. He mapped it out in this verse. He's like, what do you do if you're walking alone and you fall and you have no one to help you up? And I didn't ask Cheryl to talk about this, but once you're on a run by yourself, right? She was on a run, and she was running by herself on a run in the morning, right? She was just running by, and there's a part of the sidewalk. Have you ever hit part of the sidewalk just wrong? And she fell. and she was at full run, so she fell and she tumbled, and it was early in the morning, so there was no one around to help her up, to see if she was okay. I wasn't close by to kiss her boo-boo. She even said like a car drove by and like slowed down and just like watched her fall and just kept driving on. This verse talks about what are you gonna do if you're alone and you fall and there's no one to help you? So, it says how do you keep warm if you have no one to share some body heat with? How are you going to be able to fight off the attacks that can come from every angle if you don't have someone watching your back? All of these things point to a picture of living our lives in community, living our lives together, living our lives in relationship with one another so that we can help each other when we fall. And that's much more than just a physical falling. We go through our lives and we go through so much. Sometimes we feel like we just want to do it all on our own. Like I can take on the world by myself. But if you try to do it on your own, you're going to get lonely. And when that rock comes and you trip and fall, there's going to be no one there to help you out. You need to live your life in relationship, in community with others. When you're fighting the battles, and sometimes you can't see all the way around you, and there's stuff happening all around, you need someone watching your back. You need to live in relationship with other people. Oh, we got point number 1. I just noticed. We need to live our lives in community with other people so that we can have those people to help us out, to be there with us, to live life together. So as you guys can see on the screen already, point number 1 is I am not meant to be alone. And these points are purposely written in first person, so as you write them down, they are for you to say, for you to read. If you ever look back at this, if you ever feel lonely and you're realizing that you need some encouragement, this would be a good thing to look back on. We all need relationships in order to survive. Our relationships go in many which ways, and I've been teaching the young people about this too. We all have our relationships with our friends, but we need relationships really in 3 different ways. So we need relationships that go so up, down, and sideways. And I think Pastor Tim teaches on this also. But you need relationships that go up, people that you look up to. Mentors, leaders, pastors, people that you know in your life that you appreciate their wisdom, people that you take advice from. You need people that you look up to. These can be, those are some couple examples, but you usually want to make sure you're following and looking up to people that are following God, that are going to give you good biblical advice. Excuse me. Maybe not. I said, so we need people that we look up to, people that we can go to when we need advice, people that we can go to that will encourage us when we're feeling down, people that we can go to that will be that parent, that voice of wisdom. You also need relationships that go sideways, so that's friendships, peers, people that you're doing life together with, people that you can share the things you're going through with, people that you can have fun together with. You can go out to the movies with. You can play games with. You can just have a good time with. We all need these relationships that will help make our life better. Friendships. And then relationships that also downwards, people that you're pouring into. So parents, those could be your children. That could be people at your jobs that you lead. It could just be people in general that you're trying to give advice to, people that you're trying to tell more about Jesus, show them God's love. We need relationships in our lives in order to survive. We need relationships in our lives in order to survive. We can't do it on our own. We already know we're going to get attacked from behind. We're going to fall and trip on a rock. We're not going to be able to stay warm on our own. We just can't do it on our own. We need to live our lives in community, in relationship. Point number 2, and this is an important one because sometimes we feel like we're too proud or we're too good. But point number 2, I will open up to people when I need help. I will open up to people when I need help. I think it's really important that we don't act like it's me versus the world. I can do anything on my own. That I'm all good. That I don't need anyone else's help. We don't need to be proud and prideful. There's just no point. There's no reason. We can live our lives together and help each other out. That's what we're here for. And sometimes we have to have help. Otherwise, we're not going to make it on our own. We need to open up when we need help. We need to look to parents, mentors, trusted friends that will lead you with godly advice. We need sometimes physically people to come help us with things. We need to reach out. You need to be okay telling people, can you help me out? It's not being a burden to someone. It's not breaking any rules of friendship or relationship. It's actually quite vital that you would go and be open with someone and say, you know what? I need a little help in this area. Can you pray for me? It's okay. It's good. You need to do that. Have people that will surround you, that will lift you up, that will be there for you. These things are so important. Point number 3. I will always look to help others. So not only is it okay to ask for help, but I will look to help others also. How many of you guys have ever asked, hey, how you doing? And you keep walking? Have you ever had that kind of encounter with someone? Hey, how you doing? Hope you're good. I see that a lot. But I think in a world that can be so fast-paced, in a world that can a lot of times be very surfacey or shallow, in a world that people maybe don't want to ask for help, it's very important to then seek people out. How many of you guys have ever asked your friend if you're okay, and they say, oh, I'm good, but you can see past the, oh, I'm good, and you can see that there's something going on. I think it's important, and it starts with the people closest to us, to always be looking for ways to help and be there for someone. I think it's important that we're always looking for ways to encourage someone, to love someone, to lift them up. Because maybe they're not at a place where they're ready to open up and ask for help, but you need to look for ways to be there. And sometimes help is just being there with someone. Sometimes help is just calling them up and spending some time on the phone, sending them a funny meme. Sometimes help is just being a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes help can be physical things, going over, helping do some kind of work around the house. Sometimes help can be taking them on a trip. Sometimes help can be making them a meal. Sometimes help can be some of the tougher stuff, taking them to a doctor's visit, helping them out in any way possible. But we need to be on the lookout because sometimes people don't want to open up and ask for help. So that starts with the people closest to you, right around you. So your families, your friends, the people close to you. But it can also be the people that you don't know, the people around you that you encounter in everyday life. You need to look to be loving and helpful. Look for ways to bring them into community. Look for ways to show them God's love. That's because that's who we're supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be loving. We're supposed to be kind. We're supposed to be caring. That's how Christians are supposed to be. We're not supposed to be like everyone else. Hey, how are you? Bye. Don't give me a real answer because I don't want to have to help you out. we need to be able to take the time and look for people and find ways to help. Point number 4. I will surround myself with community. I will surround myself with community. Now, this looks like a lot of different things in our lives. Community can look like many things. It's not just coming to church, although I highly encourage coming to church. I think this is the best time of the week, Sunday mornings, when we get to come together and hang out, have a good time, get to learn about God, get to hang out with our friends. This is definitely a place that I mean when I say you need to spend time in community. But it's not just that. Community is your families. Community is your family, spending quality time together. Community is hanging out with friends. Community is your teams, your sport teams that you play on, your bowling club, your poker game. Community could be anything that you spend time with people around you. Community could be the people you work with. Now, when you're working and you're doing your job, make sure you're doing that well. I think God wants you to do well at your job, but make sure that you're making people around you feel like they're loved and they're cared for, not that they're just someone that you know. Here, do this. Here, get out of here. Get out of my face. Go do your job. But I think we need to treat people with love and show them in any atmosphere a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of love. I will surround myself with community. Now, this is not just a Sunday morning thing, or when you're with your club, or when you're with whatever your community is. But this should be your daily life. Live it in community. Live it so that you're surrounded with other people who love you and care for you. And when we can do these things, we can encourage each other. We can love one another. We can help each other. We can accomplish great things together. We can do things in our community. We can love people. We can change lives if we would just spend some time looking out for other people, to love them, to be there for them. I think there's many people in this Antelope Valley. I think there's many people in our lives that we know. I think there's a lot of people that are alone. And it's not because they choose to be, it's because they don't really know how to reach out. A lot of people that feel isolated. A lot of people that for whatever reason are trying to make it without having the relationships in their lives that they need to survive. We need relationships to survive. And the number one most important relationship is our relationship with God. We need a relationship with God to really live. The song we sang earlier, I wrote it. There's no other way to the Father. There's no other way to live. And when I was first writing that, Cheryl was asking me, she's like, what are you talking about? There's a lot of other ways that you could live. You could live godless, you could live blah, 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 you could do this, blah, blah, blah. You asked me this, I remember. I had to defend my song. But yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is there are many ways to live. People can choose to live selfishly. They can choose to live mean, angry, bitter, all of these things. They can choose that. But I would say that they're not fully living the lives that God intended them to live. You can't fully live and fully be alive without knowing God's love and without having a relationship with Him in your life. So I think it's important that we have a relationship with God. I think it's important that we have a relationship with other people and that we live in community so that we can help each other, that we can be there for each other, so that we can have a sense of belonging, so that when we're down, we can lift each other up. But so that we can all be a part of something that is bigger than just ourselves. That we can be a part of something that is so big and be a part of what God is doing right here in this Antelope Valley to see people's lives change. So as we've gone through all 4 points, hopefully you've taken some good notes, but I think the main message is don't isolate yourself. It is okay to reach out. It's okay to make new friendships. It's okay to tell people that you need help. It's okay. Just live life together. It's much, much better that way. Can I pray for you guys this morning? God, we come to you this morning, and I ask that you would be with us, that you would show us your love, that we would feel you working and moving in mighty ways. God, I pray right now that we would learn to live lives that are connected to you. That we would know that we're not supposed to be alone. That we would know that it's okay to look for help. God, I pray that as you're working in our lives and showing us your goodness and showing us your love, I pray that we would be the type of people that we would look out to others to share love, to share hope, to share light. And God, I pray that we would do everything, that we would live our whole lives inside of this sense of community, that we would do it together, that we can accomplish so much more when we work together, that we can help each other out so much more when we work together, that we can help each other up along the way, that we can weather the storms of life together. So God, I pray for anyone in the room right now that has this sense of isolation or loneliness or depression. I pray right now that God would touch your heart. And I pray that you would find the relationships, even right here in this room, that you need, that would give you love and encouragement. God, I pray for everyone in here that you would do an amazing work and that we would follow after you for what you have called us to do. We thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name.